Day 10, week 3 of the Diddy trial, and it was Capricorn season all day today. Hi, I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and it's time for another Daily Diddy, bringing you daily trial updates from the Diddy trial every day until we get a verdict. So, the main witness for today, the star attraction, was Capricorn Clark. Now, she is a former assistant to Diddy as well, and she worked in a number of different capacities between 2004 and 2020. She also served as Cassie's creative director until 2018. She talked about, she came with some heavy, really frightening things that she experienced and witnessed that really show the kind of cult-like devotion that Diddy embodied, as well as the terror that a lot of staff members ended up feeling. So right off the rip, Diddy threatened Capricorn with regards to the fact that she used to work for Death Row Records and Suge Knight, who is a rival of his. So he threatened to kill her behind that. He vaguely threatened to kill 50 Cent for what we don't really know what the story was there. Remember how George Kaplan, another one of Diddy's assistants, talked about being accused of stealing some jewelry? Well, so was Capricorn. And what ended up happening? Diddy's people forced her to take a lie detector test. She was told that if she failed, she would be thrown in the East River. She ended up taking the test over the course of 5 days, 8 hours a day, was not allowed to leave until she passed. Now, there's a whole concept of calling the police or something like that. But no, they decided to basically torture her in this building and basically kept giving her a lie detector test over and over and over again. She eventually passed. And an indication of what a toxic environment this was, Diddy ended up questioning Capricorn, like, why don't you have a man? And she's like, whatever, I don't have a man. It is what it is. He ended up having Cassie come into the room. He then told her to sit down. So she sat down. Told her to stand up. She stood up. Told her to turn around. She did that. Basically had her moving on command. And then he looked at Capricorn and said, you bitches don't want to do that, and that's why you don't have a man. Enough said there. She was working so hard, she being Capricorn, she was working 24 hours a day. She was losing her hair as a result of the stress and the constant threats. She had to get him drugs. She would often get prescriptions for him in her name, and then he would pay her for it, as well as getting him illicit drugs. But violence was not far behind, despite her complying. So Cassie and Capricorn were actually cool during some of this time. And Capricorn had told Cassie, listen, like, she knew that she was dating Kid Cudi, and she was like, you're texting him on a phone that Diddy pays for. This isn't a good idea. You're going to get us all killed. So she told Cassie to go get a burner phone, which she did. Well, eventually, Diddy, as we know, found out about Kid Cudi. When Capricorn actually saw Diddy so pissed over the whole Kid Cudi situation that he was pacing back and forth. His pants done split. So he was walking around with his crotch on, whatever, because he was so heated. He had a gun in his hand. He was pacing back and forth being like, I'm going to kill Kid Cudi. I'm going to kill Kid Cudi. Let's all get ready. We're going to go and kill Kid Cudi. She watched him break into Kid Cudi's house. And basically she was on the phone with Cassie being like, yo, this guy's wilding. Tell Kid Cudi he's in his house. So Diddy realized that she had called Cassie, made her call Cassie back and be like, and hand him the phone. And he was like, I am holding Capricorn until Kid Cudi gets over here, until you and Cudi come over here. And so, okay, by the way, that's called kidnapping, because Capricorn was not free to leave. And he basically was like, she's not leaving until you come here. So of course, Cassie comes, she complies. Now, while they're all in the car, Capricorn talked about how Diddy saw Kid Cudi driving up and then tried to chase him down with his car, but ended up abandoning that effort because he heard police sirens. He had a gun the entire incident, and Capricorn was scared to death because she was like, yo, this guy is mad. He's got a gun. I don't feel free to leave. I'm really terrified. And so on the back of that, she was told not to call the police and have Kid Cudi. Out of fear, she did not call the police, and she was instructed by Diddy not to speak to the police and to encourage Kid Cudi not to speak to the police. So when they all got back to the house, what happened? Diddy beat Cassie. And when I say beat, she was curled up in a fetal position and he was kicking her. He was wailing on her. And it got so bad that Capricorn's looking at security. Security's not intervening. Nobody's intervening. She wanted to intervene, and Diddy's like, if you intervene, I'm gonna beat you next. So she ended up calling Cassie's mom and being like, listen, dude's beating the crap out of your daughter. I'm in over my head. I can't call the police, but you can. I can't even imagine how heartbreaking that must have been for Regina Ventura to receive that call. Now, also, Diddy threatened to kill her, Capricorn, for not telling him about Cassie and Cudi. So as instructed, she covered for him when LA Fire Department called to be like, hey, you know, there's an arson, what's going on? Because again, after that incident with the burglary, he then torched the car, arson. So she would not speak to authorities with regards to that or anything having to do with the entire series of events. But of course, that didn't protect her from Diddy's wrath because Diddy fired her. He eventually hired her back a couple years later, but he fired her and told her that he would make her kill herself. Yeah. And so, you know, she talked about, especially on Cross, how she went back to work for him because, again, you know, he had the prestige, she had to pay the bills, he was gonna blackball her in the industry so she couldn't work. So at one point she basically cried and asked to be his friend again and work for him and all of that, which again is consistent with what we've seen from a lot of the staff members. So to me, this smacks a lot of Stockholm Syndrome. Now, Stockholm Syndrome it's not necessarily a recorded sort of like DSM-4, like, you know, psychological diagnosis, but it is something that has been seen, and especially in high profile cases where basically you have a situation where someone who's being abused kind of bonds with their captor and starts to empathize with them, and their goals suddenly become, you know, the captor's goals become the victim's goals, that sort of thing. Another way to look at it is trauma bonding, where basically you're both in this horrendous situation. The abuser holds the power. The victim continues to remain hopeful that things will get better. The abuser shows kindness. So kind of the same thing at work. On one hand, you're getting threatened to be killed and kidnapped and all that, but on the other, he's hooking you up and taking you to parties and helping. In sum and substance, she says it all when she said, he holds all the power as it relates to me. I needed to work and provide for my son. So again, just very disturbing all around. However, this really brought home a couple of things. First off, in order for the prosecution to prove the RICO or the racketeering charge, you need two predicate offenses. Well, you got two. One is arson for blowing up Kid Cudi's car. He does not have to be the one to do it. It could have been at his direction. And secondly, kidnapping, because again, he held Capricorn. She was not free to leave. So those two things would be enough for the prosecution to get over that hurdle. So he's really staring down the barrel of life for real, for real. So next up, LAPD as well as LA Fire. They're going to be on the stand tomorrow. I will keep y'all posted because this trial is something else. Take good care. See you tomorrow. Bye.